Begin tonight with the breaking news right here at home. Shortly before 10 this morning, a campus-wide alert going out at Ohio State University, a suspect on the attack.
Tonight, a terrifying scene at Ohio State University. The chaos starting as the campus is coming to life. It's just before 10 a.m. when authorities say a male suspect in a car deliberately jumps a curb and plows into pedestrians.
Fire department, just as OSU, we have a vehicle that struck several pedestrians.
The driver then exits the car carrying a butcher knife and starts slashing people near the engineering building, Watts Hall.
We got a man with a knife running around. Cutting people.
It looked like he was trying to hurt as many as he could.
A campus officer confronting him.
And he was yelling and the guy wouldn't stop, and the guy charged the cop and the cop was forced to shoot him.
Just 1 minute after the attack begins, the cop firing the fatal shot that takes down the suspect, seen here on the ground, surrounded by officers. Authorities tonight identifying the suspect as a student at OSU, Abdul Razak Ali Artan. The school newspaper says this is his photo. Campus now on edge as authorities start hunting for a possible second suspect. The university tweeting, "Run, hide, fight, Watts Hall," and sending text alerts to the community.
Then, we're starting to get the text that there was a shooter on campus. So they locked the building down, had us all go up to the third floor.
Some students barricading themselves inside classrooms, piling up chairs against the doors as ambulances and fire trucks race in to treat the wounded. 11 patients are rushed to local hospitals with stab wounds and injuries from being hit by that car, one in critical condition.
The most police cars I've ever seen one moment in my entire life.
FBI agents arrive with tactical units, including a SWAT team and a bomb squad. And this terrifying warning, law enforcement says parents should not call students who may be on campus because their loved ones could be in hiding. A ringing phone could give them away. Then, in late morning, the all clear.
Police in Manila have recovered and detonated a homemade explosive near the U.S. Embassy in the Philippines on Monday and suspect that militants sympathetic to ISIS could be responsible. National Police Chief Ronald De La Rosa claims that components of the device suggested it had been planted by the Maute, a Muslim rebel group that's pledged allegiance to ISIS. We could theorize that they could use this as a diversion, De La Rosa told a news conference. The embassy had no immediate comment on the discovery of the bomb, discovered merely 22 yards from the compound.
U.S. Special Operations chiefs are launching a new counter-terrorist nerve center at an undisclosed location in the Middle East. Preparing for a multi-generational international fight against terrorists, the center will support the fight against the so-called Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, and any other terrorist actor. The Joint Special Operations Command is the U.S. military's premier counter-terrorist strike force. JSOC is expanding its existing targeting nerve center in the region to make space for more American terror hunting personnel from three-letter agencies like the CIA, NSA, and FBI to foreign partners like Britain, France, Iraq, and Jordan. According to the Daily Beast, JSOC has been spending a lot of time reassuring its own U.S. government partners that they won't share everything with foreign partners, just that which helps other governments identify, track, and if necessary, arrest or kill terrorists in their midst.
A change in leadership in the United States may change how the European Union deals with Moscow. In a recent interview, the president of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, said that the United States had underestimated Russia, referring to President Obama's statement that Russia was a regional power.
Well, this was an interesting and very candid interview from the European Commission president. He certainly distanced himself from the current policies of the outgoing US administration when it comes to Russia, saying that mistakes had been made and the way that Barack Obama had handled Moscow, wasn't the way that he thought it should be continued in the future.
Russia must be treated as one big entity, as a proud nation. We have a lot to learn about the depths of Russia. We are very ignorant about it at the moment. I would like to have discussions on a level footing with Russia. Russia is not, as President Obama said, a regional power. This was a big error in assessment.
Well, the EU Commission President was also talking about security across the EU and across wider Europe, saying that without the involvement of Russia, that there could be no security architecture in Europe.
Some breaking news now on the geopolitical front. Yes, Britain is now deploying to Poland in a bid to combat Vladimir Putin's aggression. According to Will Kirby for The Express, he reports that the Prime Minister is set to announce plans to deploy British troops to Poland as Theresa May looks to secure the country as a major ally and combat Putin's aggression in the region. They write here that the troops from the Light Dragoons Regiment in the Katarik are set to travel to the Polish town of Orzice in April of next year. They write here that the plan to deploy the troops comes just days after Defense Secretary Michael Fallon announced plans to send 800 British troops to join NATO forces in Estonia in order to quell any Russian threat following Russia's annexation of the Crimea region in 2014.
An Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard vessel pointed its weapons at a U.S. Navy helicopter in the Strait of Hormuz on Saturday, 2 U.S. defense officials told Reuters on Monday, an action they described as unsafe and unprofessional. The officials, speaking on the condition of anonymity, said the incident took place when a Navy SH-60 helicopter flew within half a mile, 0.8 kilometers, of 2 Iranian vessels in international waters. One of the vessels pointed its weapons at the helicopter, the U.S. officials said. The officials added that at no point did the crew of the helicopter feel threatened, but it was unsafe because it could have led to an escalation. Iranian representatives did not immediately respond to a request for comment.
After 5 years of bombardments and horror, the conflict in eastern Aleppo could be entering its final chapter. Syrian regime forces are moving fast now on rebel-held areas with backing from the YPG. During just 3 days of fighting, regime forces have captured a number of neighborhoods from opposition groups. It's effectively split the opposition-held eastern Aleppo into 2 parts. Aleppo has been divided since 2012 between regime control in the west and rebel control in the east. The most recent fighting has forced thousands of people in eastern Aleppo to flee their homes. Most of them have moved towards YPG-controlled districts. It's the largest exodus inside Syria in months.
We lived a very terrible life. We were humiliated. We saw death. There's no bread, no food, no sugar.
We only had bread made with barley. There is no aid, no jobs, and no money.
The Battle of Aleppo is entering its most critical stage in 5 years. The defeat of rebel forces there could be weeks, perhaps even days away. The recapture of the entire city, Syria's largest, would be a turning point in the war against the rebels, both physically and psychologically, from which they may not recover.
The Israeli military has launched an overnight airstrike on ISIL in Syria. The airstrike targeted an abandoned UN building on Monday. Israel says ISIL used the facility as a base for which Israeli forces were attacked. There were no immediate reports of injuries. On Sunday, Israeli aircraft killed 4 militants in an airstrike on a machine gun-mounted vehicle. This was in response to a rare attempt by ISIL-affiliated militants to ambush Israeli forces on the Israeli side of the Golan Heights.
This is the first occasion that ISIS is known to have opened fire intentionally on IDF forces.
Israel said on Sunday it will order 17 more U.S.-made F-35 Joint Strike Fighters, bringing its total number on order to 50. A statement from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said green light for the order was given by the Security Cabinet. Israel is due to take delivery of its first F-35s next month. Israel's public radio said purchase will come under a U.S. military aid program. In September, U.S. President Barack Obama signed off on a 10-year military aid package for Israel worth $38 billion.
The head of the Israeli Army's Military Intelligence Division is advising the nation to prepare for another wave of Arab terror attacks that could possibly be ignited by rising frustrations over Palestinian leadership issues.
Major General Herzl Halevi says that the power struggle within the Palestinian Authority is going to intensify this coming year as even more contenders show up to challenge Mahmoud Abbas's hold on the presidency. And that's more than likely to lead to even more instability in the West Bank than the tenuous situation it's already in. Halevi told a closed conference in Tel Aviv University that this can have serious ramifications on the Jewish residents of Judea and Samaria, who are likely targets of increasing terrorist attacks. The military intelligence chief said that even though the fire terrorism witnessed in the country this past week can be stamped out, the Arab terrorists will come up with new ways to attack the Jewish state. On a positive note, Halevi says that Israel has an increasing number of common interests with regional Sunni Muslim states, such as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, which present an opportunity to improve relations.
On Monday, OPEC was trying to rescue a deal to limit oil output as tensions grew among the producer group and non-OPEC member Russia. Top exporter Saudi Arabia says markets would rebalance even without an agreement. OPEC experts started a meeting in Vienna at 9 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time. They were due to make recommendations to their ministers on how exactly the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries should reduce production when it meets on November 30th. Meanwhile, the Algerian and Venezuelan oil ministers were to travel to Moscow on Monday and Tuesday. Their travel marks a final attempt to persuade Russia to take part in cuts instead of merely freezing output, which has reached new highs in the past year.
Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Iranian counterpart Hassan Rouhani have held a phone conversation on Monday. The two stressed on promoting closer bilateral cooperation, including setting up the framework for the energy dialogue between Russia and OPEC.
The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has told the Dakota Access Pipeline protesters they need to leave by December 5th. The American Indians and others have been ordered to leave an encampment in North Dakota where they've been entrenched for months protesting the Dakota Access Pipeline. Tribes including the Standing Rock and Cheyenne River Sioux are fighting the Dakota Access Project because they fear it will harm drinking water and cultural sites. Texas-based pipeline developer Energy Transfer Partners says the 1,200-mile pipeline through the Dakotas, Iowa, and Illinois will be safe. The Corps said last week in a letter to Standing Rock Sioux tribal leader Dave Archambault that all federal lands north of the Cannonball River will be closed to public access December 5th for safety concerns.
The weather has prompted the governor of North Dakota to order an emergency evacuation of Dakota Access Pipeline protesters. They're camping on Army Corps land. Governor Jack Dalrymple signed the order today because of what he calls harsh winter conditions. The document goes into detail about safety concerns and potential danger to human life. Officials say the order won't be enforced.
And finally, the British government is facing a fresh legal challenge over whether it has the right to take the country out of the single market as part of the Brexit. The pro-EU think tank British Influence is planning to file a lawsuit against the government, saying leaving the EU does not automatically end Britain's membership in the European Economic Area. It also says that it is up to the UK Parliament to decide about the issue. This comes as the government says that the EEA membership ends when the UK leaves the EU. All 20 members of the EU are in the EEA, which allows the tariff-free movement of goods, services, capital, and labour. Earlier this month, the UK's High Court had also ruled that the Parliament alone has the power to formally trigger Brexit.
Deutsche Telekom has confirmed up to 900,000 customers have had their broadband service cut off following a possible hack of its hardware. That figure had now fallen to 400,000 as security measures had been implemented, the German company said. But Reuters reported some affected customers may still be unable to make contact in order to report the problem. Internet access, phone connections and TV reception for those with a certain router have been affected since Sunday.
The first case of Zika acquired from a local mosquito has been reported in Texas in Brownsville and Cameron County. Texas is now the second state after Florida where the virus has spread from mosquitoes to humans. According to the state's Department of Health, there have been 238 cases of locally acquired Zika reported in Florida since its first known case. Texas said county health workers will go door to door in the infected woman's neighborhood to collect voluntary urine samples.
Thailand's fish are disappearing, threatening a multi-billion-dollar industry. Years of overfishing killing off stocks in the Gulf of Thailand, prompting fishermen to head out to protected waters and boost their catch illegally. Bangkok is cracking down on lawbreakers, but environmental groups say they're just part of a far wider problem.
What's often underreported and not even calculated into the solutions of
returning the fish population is the impact of climate change upon the Gulf of Thailand. Now, warming oceans means that fish are disappearing because they're losing not only their habitat, but their food source, and they're being pushed into deeper water where they feel more comfortable.
On Tuesday, scientists who surveyed Australia's Great Barrier Reef said warm seas have killed 2/3 of a 700-kilometer stretch of coral in the past 9 months. Professor Andrew Baird, a researcher who was part of the reef surveys, stated the coral is essentially cooked. He said the die-off was almost certainly the largest ever recorded in any location due to the size of the barrier reef, which at 348,000 square kilometers, or 134,400 square miles, is the biggest coral reef in the world.
Weather news from around the world recently. We'll begin in Italy, where 2 people died in flash flooding. Look at all of that water. People have been ordered to evacuate in advance of the storms that brought all of this rainfall in several cities in northwestern Italy. There have been hundreds of people, as you can imagine, that have been left homeless. Look at the roads completely destroyed, and some of these intense rains, as you can see, triggered landslides. And the famous Sicilian orange crop, unfortunately, has also sustained a lot of damage within that same region. Just terrible. There was also deadly flooding in Greece, which prompted evacuations and ended up claiming the life of one man on the island of Zakynthos, Greece. Several people were rescued from flooded basements there. And then check out this, a massive water spout just north of Valencia, Spain, which is a huge tourist area. Some are referring to it as the sea tornado. Tourists and locals were watching in relief as that huge water spout thankfully stayed offshore. Now we go to Guatemala, where the Volcano de Fuego, meaning volcano of fire, you can definitely see where it gets that name from. The time-lapse video taken at night shows the lava just fountaining down the sides. There was ash spewing into the air. The volcano, again nicknamed Fuego, is famous for being almost constantly active and at a very low level.
The United States will experience its first transcontinental solar eclipse in 99 years. And it doesn't happen until next year.
I'm just looking forward to seeing it myself. You know, it's a once-in-a-lifetime viewing area.
But enthusiasts are already making plans.
We've had calls from people in Europe, South America, and so people will come from all over the world to see this and chase this eclipse.
The best place to see the eclipse on the East Coast? Columbia, South Carolina. Anyone within a 100-mile radius of the city will experience 2.5 minutes of pure darkness in the middle of the afternoon. 12 states are along the path of the eclipse, which will travel from Oregon to South Carolina on Monday, August 21st, 2017.
Citywide, there's a massive effort to have all kinds of events throughout the Midlands of South Carolina so that people will have options, places to view them, things to do.
Tonight we have a survival story for you that seems to defy logic. Jerika Duncan reports an 8-month-old infant was thrown from a car after a terrible crash.
Baby Bryce Hale of Hope, Arkansas looked to the sky, almost as if she knew who to thank for saving her life. Captain Charlie Smith and firefighter Josh Moore found her in a storm drain Friday night.
She more or less had her hands up, ready for somebody to pick her up.
Police say a tractor trailer collided with the car carrying baby Bryce and her family. Their vehicle went spinning out of control and into a guardrail, throwing the baby 35 feet away from the car. Jakesia Colson says she spent nearly 30 minutes searching for her only child.
She should have been gone, but she's still alive with no injuries.
There's so many times we go out and things aren't okay. And just during the holidays here to have a positive just feels good.
Especially good to a mother who can kiss her baby again.
I feel like God took her out the car and placed her there. She's still alive. She's my miracle baby.